Hi, I'm R.T. Kendall. I've been asked to give my testimony, and with delight and some fear, I do it. And I pray for the guidance of the Holy Spirit as I speak to you. I was brought up in a Christian home in Ashland, Kentucky. I was brought up in a denomination called the Church of the Nazarene. My father named me after his favorite preacher, Dr. R.T. Williams, who was general superintendent of the Church of the Nazarene. Our church back in Ashland on 22nd and Bath Avenue was my home for many, many years. The memories I have that go back to that church. At the age of 6, in fact, it was April the 5th, 1942, Easter morning as it happened, I knelt at my parents' bedside and asked the Lord to forgive me of all my sins. I've thought about that a lot since. I don't know how many sins I'd committed at that stage. The only thing I can think of is I sassed my parents, and I think I felt guilt, but whatever. I remember it as though it were yesterday, and I was saved. And I believe now, eternally saved that day. I don't know that I had that theology at the time, but I was saved then. Many years later, I went away to college, Trevecca Nazarene College, now Trevecca Nazarene University. And a year later, I felt the call of God on my life to preach the gospel. God used a Scot from Glasgow, John S. Logan. He changed my life by making me see. I had to have him to do it, I guess. I'd hoped that Michael the Archangel would come and tell me, but he used a Scot. John Logan made me see for myself that I really was called, and he was given such wisdom. Do you know, I've never doubted it since. I started preaching a week later, haven't stopped since. 3 months after I felt the call to preach, would you believe, at the age of 19, I was called to be the pastor of a church in Palmer, Tennessee. I did this on weekends. I was at Trevecca all week, Monday to Friday. Friday afternoon, I would drive in the car that my grandmother gave me. Grandmother Kendall bought me a brand new car, and it enabled me to travel back and forth. Friday afternoon, I'd go down to Palmer. That was about 115 miles from Nashville, a 2-hour drive, basically. And I would usually come back Sunday night after the evening service. One time I came back on a Monday morning. It was October the 31st, 1955, which would turn out to be, if I were to say the greatest day of my life, how do you measure things? Was it my conversion in April 1942? Was it when I married Louise, June 28th, 1958? But there are those dates that stand out. But one Monday morning, driving in my car, I remember where I was on the road on US 41. I'd just come down from Mont Eagle in the state of Tennessee on US 41. I turned off the radio and decided to pray all the way back. Usually I'd play the radio all the way back to Nashville. I began to pray, and my heart was heavy. And I began to think, Lord, what is going on? Well, 2 verses came to my mind. 1 Peter 5:7, casting all your care upon him, for he cares for you. And Matthew 11:30, my yoke is easy and my burden is light. I thought, Lord, this isn't easy. Help me to cast all of my care upon you. Then I would be able to say, my yoke is easy and my burden is light. And I felt that God was nowhere near, but I was in earnest. When all of a sudden, on that spot, I could take you to it. Within a few hundred yards, I could take you right to it. The glory of the Lord filled the car. As I drove, there beside me, to my right, was Jesus interceding for me. He was praying for me with all his heart, and I want you to know that he was more real to me than Hickory Lake in my back garden here in Hendersonville, Tennessee. The person of Jesus was more real to me than anything around me. And as he prayed, I couldn't tell what he was saying. I just knew he was praying for me. The next thing I remember was an hour later, just before getting to Nashville, coming through Smyrna, Tennessee as it was, I heard Jesus say to the Father, he wants it. I heard the Father answer back, he can have it. In that moment, my heart was warmed, the Holy Spirit filled me. There was Jesus looking at me. I saw him as clearly as anything. If I were an artist with perfect recall, I could tell you exactly what he looked like. For about 30 seconds, I could see his face. And then it left. I knew that day I was eternally saved. It changed my life. By sundown that day, I saw teaching that I thought nobody had seen since the Apostle Paul. It was that real to me. It changed my life, gave me the theology I preach today, and I give God all the glory for it. I don't deserve it, but I can tell you I have seen the glory of the Lord, and if this happens to someone, you're never the same again.